Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're stepping into a world that feels a little paradoxical.
It really is. It's a world where the recipe for a perfect chocolate chip cookie sits right on the page next to the recipe for double homicide.
That's it, exactly. We're talking about a culinary cozy mystery, and our source for this deep dive is the novel that really kicked off a huge series, Chocolate Chip Cookie Murder.
And it sets the stage perfectly. You think you're settling in for a quiet afternoon of baking, but what you actually get is this incredibly detailed murder investigation, all wrapped up in a layer of, Minnesota snow and granulated sugar.
It's the ultimate genre paradox. I mean, this is a book that's packed with mouthwatering, completely usable recipes. The source material is very clear. These aren't just mentions of food, they're full-on recipes you can follow.
And yet, the engine that drives the story forward is a really gripping small-town murder plot. It's like cognitive dissonance, but served with a hot cup of coffee and a fresh-baked cookie.
So what's so fascinating here, and what we really want to dig into, is how the genre works. It's not just about the subject, it's about the rules, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The cozy mystery has this very specific structure. You have to blend that domestic charm, the baking, the community, that feeling of safety, with the intricate mechanics of solving a crime.
But, and this is the key part, without all the stuff you'd get in a typical police procedural, there's no graphic gore, no explicit violence, none of that hard-boiled cynicism.
And the sources show this book just nails that balance. Critics called it a delightful confection, an entertaining debut. But they also made a point of saying it keeps the reader in suspense from beginning to end.
So it has to give you that comfort food feeling, but without ever sacrificing the mystery at its core.
Which brings us to our mission for today. It's sort of twofold. First, we need to unpack that unique structure. How does the sweet, predictable world of a bakery owner become, a perfect vantage point for uncovering a brutal murder?
And second, we have to look at the town itself, Lake Eden, Minnesota. We need to analyze this complex web of relationships and frankly, the financial rot that's hiding just underneath the surface of this seemingly safe little town.
Because that's the secret ingredient, isn't it?
Yeah.
That tension between the public face of the town and all the private desperation bubbling underneath. That's what makes the violence feel not just possible, but almost inevitable.
Exactly. Let's get into it. Let's talk about our baker turned sleuth.
Let's. Hannah Swensen.
Hannah Swensen is the absolute heart of this whole thing. On the surface, she's the owner of the Cookie Jar, which is a bakery and coffee shop, but she is so much more than just a baker.
She's an anti-socialite, really. She runs her business with this incredible, almost rigid competence, but her personal life, it's deliberately unglamorous. It's messy.
And her choice of pet tells you everything you need to know about her personality.
Oh, Moishe, yes.
Yes.
He's not just a cat. He is a character.
He's this huge 25-pound orange tomcat. He's half blind. He's got a torn ear.
And Hannah found him outside her condo looking, and this is her description, positively disreputable, which is exactly why she named him Moishe.
They're kindred spirits, really. And the book makes this explicit connection. It says they formed an instant bond because they were both battle-worn.
Right. Moishe from his life on the streets, and Hannah.
Hannah from her weekly confrontations with her mother. That one line tells you so much about the real non-murder conflict that drives her life.
And that family tension is probably the true engine of the book's emotional side. Hannah's approaching 30, and her mother, Dolores, has this very rigid, very small-town belief that a woman her age ought to be married.
It's a huge subplot. Dolores is just
Yeah.
relentless. She's constantly trying to set Hannah up with these men who are just wildly wrong for her.
Most famously, Norman, the balding dentist.
Lone Norman. And the source makes a point of his conversational quirks. His favorite topic of conversation, unfortunately for Hannah, is gum disease.
You can't really get less romantic than a detailed chat about plaque buildup.
Not really, no. And all Hannah wants to do is run her business. But she's smart about it. She knows she needs to stand out in the small town.
Which is where her business vehicle comes in. It's genius.
It's a used Chevy Suburban, but she had it painted this vibrant candy apple red. She did it specifically to attract notice.
And it's got cookies in big gold letters on the doors, and even the license plates say cookies. You literally can't miss her coming.
It's her entire brand identity on wheels. So where is all this happening? Lake Eden, Minnesota.
Lake Eden sounds like this perfect, idyllic little northern town. But the source material immediately points out how dependent it is on the seasons.
Right. The population quadruples in the summer. You get tourists, cabin owners.
But after Labor Day, the summer people all leave. and the town just shrinks. What you're left with is this very small, very insular group of locals, and they're surrounded by all these empty, winterized cabins.
And that detail is so critical for the cozy genre, isn't it? When the town shrinks like that, it becomes a pressure cooker.
Exactly. Everyone knows everyone else's business. A secret, especially a dangerous one, just can't stay hidden for long in that kind of environment.
Which is precisely why the local baker is a better sleuth than the actual police. She's already plugged into that social network.
Absolutely. And we should probably go back to the food for a second. The recipes, they aren't just filler. They're not a gimmick.
No, they're woven into the narrative. They're actual plot devices.
We get the full recipe for chocolate chip crunch cookies, which is important because that's the cookie the first victim was eating.
And later, there's the Regency Ginger Crisp recipe. Hannah's baking those for a meeting of the Lake Eden Regency Romance Club.
So the comfort food is always there, grounding the story. It creates this really stark, almost absurd contrast with the violence.
Yeah, you're reading the exact, precise steps for making a comforting snack. And then, boom, somebody gets shot in an alley.
It just amplifies the shock of the murder. Because the world is literally built on a foundation of flour, sugar, and butter. It suggests that even in the safest place you can imagine, violence can still find a way in.
It's a powerful tool. Okay, so we've set this safe, snowy stage. Now we have to talk about the event that just shatters it all.
The murder of Ron LaSalle.
Ron LaSalle is the first body, and his backstory is so important for understanding the psychology of Lake Eden.
He's the local hero, where he was. He was the star quarterback for the Lake Eden Gulls. He was supposed to go pro, maybe even play for the Vikings. The whole town had these huge expectations for him.
But his career was cut short by a torn ligament. A classic story. So instead of NFL glory, he's driving a cozy cow delivery truck.
Hannah notes that it's not exactly the glorious future he'd envisioned. He's still around. He helps out as an unpaid assistant coach, but his life is undeniably a step down.
Which immediately creates this undercurrent of potential frustration, maybe financial pressure. He becomes a much more complex and empathetic victim.
And that's another rule of the cozy genre. The victim can't just be a random person. They have to embody some part of the town's own, minor tragedies and dashed hopes. It gives you a whole range of potential motives that aren't just about robbery.
The discovery of the body is actually pretty graphic for this genre. Hannah finds him shot dead in the alley right behind her bakery.
The source describes an ugly hole ringed with powder burns in his delivery shirt. That detail, the powder burns, it tells you it was a very close-range shot, almost an execution.
And yet, what's the very first thing Hannah thinks right after the initial shock?
It's so dark, but so practical. She admits to herself that finding his body had been good for business.
Wait, really? The first thing she thinks after finding a dead body is that her sales are up.
It just shows you how small towns process tragedy. The cookie jar was suddenly jam-packed with customers. Everyone wanted to stand around, eat cookies, and get Hannah's opinion on the murder.
It's this moment of incredible, almost cynical commercial awareness. Even a tragedy becomes a commodity in a town where, I guess, big drama is pretty rare.
It's a brilliant observation. But the most important clue, and probably the sweetest one, comes from the most unlikely source imaginable.
Hannah's 4-year-old niece, Tracy.
Tracy. She's the daughter of Hannah's sister, Andrea, and the local deputy, Bill Todd. And she gives them the timeline.
She tells Hannah she saw the koozie cow truck pull into the alley, and right after, she heard a loud bang.
Which she thought was just her dad, Bill's old Ford, backfiring. But since there were no other cars around, Hannah realizes immediately Tracy must have heard the gunshot.
And this is so critical because it shows the limits of a professional investigation. Her brother-in-law, Bill, he's leading the police work. He's trying to get promoted to detective, so he's focused on procedure.
While Hannah, the aunt, is focused on listening to what a 4-year-old is saying, a formal investigator might just dismiss that as unreliable noise.
Bill's professional take on it is very clinical. He says Ron was shot instantly, the driver's window was open, so Ron must have stopped his truck and rolled down the window to talk to his killer.
Which means he knew the person. He didn't feel threatened. The police are focused on ballistics, but Hannah is focused on that social interaction that happened right before he died.
Which brings us to the legendary Pink Passion lipstick investigation.
Yes, a cafeteria worker, Edna. She mentions she threw away some disposable cups after Ron stocked the school's milk cooler. And she noticed one of them had a smear of bright pink lipstick on it.
And her only comment on it is that the color looks terrible on someone our age.
And Anna, who kind of bristles at that generational critique. She immediately understands that those cups are crucial evidence, even though Edna has already tossed them into the giant community dumpster.
This is where Hannah's dedication goes from, amateur sleuth to something else entirely. She tries calling Bill, can't get him, and she knows the garbage truck comes at 5 in the morning. She has to act now.
So she drives her candy apple red Suburban right up to this huge dumpster. She climbs onto the hood, but she still can't reach the bags inside.
So she does the only thing she can do. She makes the ultimate sacrifice for the investigation. She slid down into the bowels of the dumpster.
She literally builds a staircase out of trash bags. She calls it slippery and squishy. Her shoes sink into whatever that gunk is at the bottom. She comes out smelling, as the book says, like a panhandler.
She even tries to use a bread wrapper as an evidence bag. It's almost comical, but shows she's got this basic understanding of how to preserve evidence, probably from watching TV.
This is such a defining moment for the cozy mystery. A professional detective would secure the scene, call the sanitation department. Hannah just jumps into the filth herself to get one tiny piece of evidence.
Now, what's Bill's reaction when she finally tells him?
Exactly what you'd expect. He laughs. He tells her the lab probably can't lift fingerprints from a rough styrofoam cup anyway. So her ordeal was basically for nothing, forensically speaking.
But then he admits, you've got a point. The lipstick itself, the color, that's the clue.
So they have to pivot back to local intelligence. They go see Rhonda Scharf, who is Lake Eden's only cosmetic expert.
And Hannah uses that classic more flies with honey tactic. She flatters Rhonda, tells her how perfect her makeup is, says she saved her for last because she's the true expert. She plays right to her ego.
And it works perfectly. Rhonda identifies the color instantly. It's Pretty Girl Pink Passion, and it's sold by Luann Hanks, a local woman who sells cosmetics on the weekend to support her family.
And just like that, the investigation leaves a world of police procedure and enters the world of local gossip and social networks.
It has completely bypassed all the official channels. It's running on a child's observation, a cafeteria worker's gossip, and a cosmetic expert's product knowledge. It's a perfect example of how the genre works.
So, armed with this pink passion lipstick lead, Hannah goes to see Luann, and she confirms it. There's only one woman in town who wears that specific color.
Danielle Watson.
Danielle Watson, the wife of the star high school coach, Boyd Watson.
And Boyd is described as being extremely demanding, not an easy man. So Danielle is already living under a lot of pressure. She's spotted at a fundraiser for the mayor, looking perfect in an ice blue dress and, of course, her telltale pink passion lipstick.
Hannah tries a gentle approach first, but Danielle immediately lies about seeing Ron, so Hannah switches tactics. She goes to hardball.
She follows Danielle into the ladies' room and physically blocks the exit.
That's a lie, and you know it, she says. Why were you at the school with Ron?
And that's the moment the whole perfect facade just crumbles. Danielle breaks down. She confesses that Ron was much more than just a friend. He was her sponsor at Gamblers Anonymous.
Wow. So that's the first major secret we uncover in Lake Eden. This high-status coach's wife has a secret gambling addiction.
A secret she is desperate to keep from her husband. She tells him she's taking an art class at the local college when she's really at her GA meetings. She's terrified Boyd would divorce me if he ever found out the truth.
And she gives Hannah her alibi. Her husband was away at a basketball clinic. She and Ron spent the night together, and Ron dropped her off around 7:20 in the morning, which was shortly before he was killed.
But her confession also provides the next critical clue. It's what links Ron's murder to this whole other dark subplot.
Right. She had been urging Ron to go to the dentist.
Because he had a painful, fissured molar cracked tooth. He got it in a fight with a bouncer at a casino when he was there handing out GA pamphlets.
And that dental detail is so important because it connects Ron's last known movements directly back to the man Hannah's mother wants her to date.
Norman Rhodes, the dentist. The murder happened right before Ron's dental appointment with Norman.
So Hannah needs to confirm this. She sets up a lunch date with Norman at his office. It's a tactical move so she can ask him about Ron without forcing him to break patient confidentiality.
And this is where her sister Andrea, who is often kind of lazy and manipulative, she suddenly becomes this huge asset.
Yeah, Andrea agrees to go with her and do a little snooping in Norman's office while Hannah is keeping him busy. She's surprisingly good at it.
So while Hannah is interviewing Norman, and he confirms, yes, Ron was his first appointment that morning, he was in considerable pain, Andrea is in the back.
And she finds something truly shocking, a box of Polaroid photos.
And the photos are of women from the town. Some of them are identifiable by the specific Celtic cross pendant they're wearing. They're all nude. And they're all unconscious.
The implication is immediate and horrifying. Norman, this seemingly harmless, kind of dorky dentist, he was using laughing gas, the N2O, and cutting the oxygen supply to render his female patients unconscious so he could take these non-consensual photographs.
It's a massive, dark twist.
Yeah.
I mean, it really pushes the boundaries of the cozy mystery genre. Those rules usually prohibit crimes that are sexual in nature.
And this introduces a truly horrific crime into this otherwise cozy world. It's hidden right there in the normalcy of the local dentist's office. Hannah's thought is just that he seemed so normal.
This completely changes our picture of Lake Eden. It's not just harboring a secret gambling addict, it's hiding a serial perpetrator who is using his profession to exploit unconscious women.
But the most telling part is how the sisters react to this discovery.
Yes, they choose their loyalty to each other and to the victims over any kind of strict adherence to the law.
Exactly. They know that if they hand these photos over to police, it's going to expose all these women, many of whom are prominent members of the community. They're married, they have families. The public shaming would be just immense.
So they make a very conscious moral choice. They destroy the evidence.
They take the photos back to Hannah's bakery and they bleach them in a sink full of industrial strength stain remover. They literally watch the images disappear, turning the Polaroids into blank white squares.
They are knowingly, actively obstructing justice. But they're doing it to protect the women in their community from more trauma.
And that choice, which is highly illegal, is only really justifiable within the very specific moral universe of a cozy mystery. In a small town like Lake Eden, sometimes maintaining social stability and protecting your neighbors outweighs the abstract idea of justice.
It solidifies Hannah's entire ethical framework. Her primary loyalty is to community care, not to the letter of the law. She's like a vigilante of social consequence.
Okay, so we've got Ron's murder, Danielle's secret addiction, and Norman's horrifying secret life. But the actual murder is still unsolved, and the motive is about to shift.
It moves away from personal secrets and witness elimination and squarely into the world of high-stakes financial crime.
The investigation now pivots to the manager of the Cozy Cow Dairy, a man named Max Turner. And he's disappeared.
Which is immediately suspicious. He was supposed to be in Wisconsin giving the opening speech at the Tri-State Buttermakers Convention. This was a huge professional honor for him, something he would never, ever miss willingly.
His secretary is frantic. She says he's a hands-on manager who would never just vanish like this, especially right after one of his employees was murdered. Something is very wrong.
And we already know from Norman Rhodes that Max was much more than just a dairy manager. He was a ruthless loan shark.
Right. Norman's own family almost lost everything when Max unexpectedly called in a loan on his father's dental practice years ago. And other people in town confirm it. Lisa calls him a total shark.
So Max Turner is the embodiment of the dark capitalist underbelly of this quiet little town. He's the one preying on people's desperation for his own personal gain.
So if Ron was killed because he saw something, Max was probably killed for a purely financial reason. He had a lot of enemies.
Anna and Andrea decide they can't wait for the police. They break into Max's house.
And Andrea notes his decorating scheme. It's just excessive. Everything is cow-themed. China cows, cow magnets, a cow-shaped creamer. It's this bizarrely meticulous collection that contrasts so sharply with his ruthless business life.
They find his wallet, his cash, and his keys still in the house. This confirms he didn't just run away despite having plenty of reasons to. It solidifies the theory that he was murdered.
So they follow the trail to the dairy, they break in at night, and they notice there are no expensive alarm systems, which seems out of character for someone as financially savvy and paranoid as Max.
And that's where they find him. He's in the original dairy's small, windowless safe room. He's been shot.
And the hole in his shirt is very similar to the one she'd seen in Ron's Cozy Cow Dairy shirt. The crimes are definitely connected. He's been dead since Wednesday morning.
The immediate thought is that the killer was there to retrieve something. So Hannah starts looking through the papers in the safe. She finds all these loan agreements,
including the paid-in-full documents for Norman's father's dental practice. So the killer was looking for specific, compromising financial documents.
Which brings the focus to the biggest employer in town, Delray Manufacturing.
Hannah's neighbor, Phil Plotnick, who works there, had told her that about 4 years ago the company was in terrible shape. Gruesome, he called it. But then they suddenly secured new financing.
And Phil's very specific. He said it was not a bank loan.
That non-bank financing points straight back to Max Turner. He must have been the one who bailed out the company.
At the same time, Hannah's mother, Dolores, she accidentally provides another piece of the puzzle. She was at the dentist's office that morning, right after Ron's appointment was supposed to happen, and she saw a black truck speeding away from the area around the time Ron was killed.
So the focus shifts entirely to the Woodley family, who own Delray Manufacturing. You have Del Woodley, the father, who looks grim, and his son Benton, who has recently come back to town to help.
And this is where Andrea's social knowledge becomes a weapon. She used to date Benton, and she knows his tell. When he's stressed and lying, he has this habit of flicking his fingernail with his thumb.
It's that kind of specific behavioral intel that a local can get that the police would never know.
And Andrea's snooping pays off again. She finds a rental folder from a company called Compacts Unlimited in Del Woodley's den.
So if Max was killed to get back financial documents tied to Delray, and someone rented a mysterious black truck, the Woodleys are now the prime suspects. The only question is, which one of them pulled the trigger? The father, the son, or the wife, Judith?
This really brings us to the final act. All the pieces are there.
The timeline is now crystal clear. We know Ron was killed around 6:45 in the morning.
And we have a witness, a man named Mr. Harris, a looky-loo, who was checking out a nearby farm for sale. He confirms he saw a black rental car from Compacts Unlimited speeding away from the dairy at exactly that time. He had to swerve to avoid it.
So you connect that rental car sighting to the Compacts Unlimited folder that Andrea found in the Woodley's den. That's the final physical link.
And now Hannah uses all the social data she's gathered, specifically about Judith Woodley, to build a psychological profile of the killer.
Judith Woodley. She's described as a classic blue blood who married Del for his money. Her entire identity, her whole sense of self, is wrapped up in maintaining her social standing.
She protects it fiercely. She spent over $100,000 just decorating her sitting room with antiques.
And Max Turner was about to destroy all of that. He financed Delray years ago, and now he was calling in the loan. That would mean foreclosure. It would mean Judith would be forced out of her expensive, antique-filled house.
Benton, the son, he might be able to handle financial loss. But for Judith, for whom that house represents her history, her status, she just couldn't let that happen.
So that's the motive. It's not about greed for more money. It's about the desperate need to prevent the public humiliation of losing her status.
Hannah realizes she has to be the one to confront her. It's incredibly foolhardy, but she arranges a meeting at the Woodley home. And Judith greets her at the door, looking completely elegant in lilac silk. Deceptively so.
The confrontation is unbelievably tense. Judith knows why Hannah is there. She anticipates the questions, and she pulls a gun from underneath her shawl.
And suddenly, Hannah is staring down the barrel of a gun. She knows Bill, her only backup, isn't even a detective yet. Help is miles away.
But Hannah is a master strategist when it comes to social situations. She knows she has to stall. She has to keep Judith talking. And she does it by appealing directly to Judith's obsession with prestige and old money.
Judith confesses to everything. She killed Max to get the loan paperwork and stop the foreclosure. She calls Max stupid because she distracted him with a stack of $100 bills while she shot him.
And she killed Ron LaSalle for the coldest reason of all. He was just a witness. He was stocking the school's milk cooler, and he saw her black rental car leaving the dairy. She thought she had total privacy.
Then comes the brilliant part, the stalling tactic. Hannah starts talking about Judith's tea set.
It's this priceless 200-year-old Wedgwood heirloom, a gift from King George III. It's Judith's pride and joy.
And Hannah points out that if Judith shoots her, she might drop her teacup and ruin this priceless antique. She makes Judith realize that the thing she's quite fond of is in danger.
She appeals directly to Judith's central identity. Not her survival, but her status and her love for her antiques.
And that tiny moment of emotional distraction buys just enough time. Bill Todd, who had been alerted by a very nervous Andrea that Hannah was going to confront the killer, he rushes in.
He tackles Judith just as she lowers the gun, momentarily distracted by the threat to her porcelain.
And Hannah's immediate reaction is so professional. Despite her amateur status, she tells Bill, cuff her first. Read her rights, Bill. She's making sure the case doesn't get thrown out on a technicality.
So Judith is arrested, and Bill, thanks entirely to Hannah's dangerous legwork, finally gets his promotion to detective.
A victory for justice and for Bill's career, but one that was earned entirely through cookies, dumpster diving, and some very clever, boundary-pushing amateur investigation.
So now the double homicide is solved, justice has been served, more or less, and life in Lake Eden has to get back to normal, and we see all these personal subplots that were on hold, they immediately start to flourish again.
First thing is Bill's career. He got the promotion, But the politics of the sheriff's department mean he has to promise not to tell his new supervisor, a guy named Mike Kingston, that a civilian, who also happens to be his sister-in-law, did all the heavy lifting.
And then, of course, the romantic landscape just heats right up. The murder plot is over, but the matchmaking plot, which is driven by Dolores, it kicks into high gear.
All of a sudden, Hannah has two legitimate guys interested in her. First, there's Norman Rhodes, the newly exposed but still fundamentally nice dentist. He confesses he hasn't been comfortable around a woman in years, and he asks her out.
And then there's Mike Kingston, the new handsome detective from Minneapolis who moved to Lake Eden for a fresh start after his wife died. And Mike also asks her out.
So you immediately get this classic romantic triangle, which is a genre staple. It fills the narrative space that the homicide investigation just vacated.
The real winner here, of course, is Dolores, Hannah's mother. She immediately tried to make a bet with Hannah that both men will ask her out. She sees them both as good catches.
We also see some really important personal growth from Hannah's sister, Andrea. Throughout the book, she's kind of struggled with the label of being a mother, but now she starts to embrace it. She lets Tracy start calling her mommy without objecting.
And Andrea proves her worth one last time. She uses her unique talents, her expert ability to lie, and her ability to quiver on command to protect Hannah from the lecture she's about to get from Bill about, breaking and entering, destroying evidence, and generally compromising his investigation.
Right. Bill can't stand it when I cry, she says. So she fakes tears, and he immediately melts and tells them he's not angry. It's this calculated emotional manipulation, but it's deployed for a good cause. It's a very powerful weapon in that small-town arsenal.
And now we have to spend some real time on this. There's an extensive and really crucial subplot in the epilogue about a runaway girl named Candy. It shows a whole other side of Hannah.
It absolutely does. It establishes that underneath her prickly exterior, Hannah is this fundamentally compassionate, caring person.
Candy is a teenager who's found sleeping inside the cookie jar. She was just trying to get out of the brutal Minnesota cold. It was 23 below zero that night.
Which really emphasizes the life-or-death reality of that winter landscape.
Candy is terrified of the police, so she runs away when Hannah and Norman find her. But she leaves a note behind, and a thank you. She had closed the shop door behind her and cleaned up her mess. She even made a batch of English toffee as a way of saying thanks.
And that small domestic act is what convinces Hannah that she has to help this girl, but outside of official police channels.
So it's more amateur detective work, but this time it's applied to a human crisis. Candy lies about her age and who she is, but they eventually figure out her father was a veterinarian because of a clue she drops about his clinic's phone number.
And Andrea, again, uses her unique skills. She uses her expert liar status and this remarkable one-button dialing persistence, just going through area codes trying to match this 7-digit number. And she eventually tracks down Candy's mother in Des Moines, Iowa.
And we find out the heartbreaking reason Candy ran away. Her mother had just gotten remarried the day before. Candy felt like she couldn't possibly compete with her new stepsister, Allison, who her new stepdad was always describing as perfect.
She was afraid he would constantly be comparing her to Allison and that she'd always come up short. It's a crisis that's completely rooted in teenage insecurity and isolation.
And Hannah's solution is just brilliant. She doesn't set up some dramatic, tearful confrontation. Instead, she arranges for Candy to meet Allison, who goes by Sunny naturally, at a local Christmas party.
It's this masterful piece of psychological manipulation for a good cause. And Sunny, the stepsister, she's surprisingly insightful. She tells Hannah that her dad always makes her sound better than she really is, and she wishes Candy had just stuck around to meet the real person.
The genius of the plan is that Candy and Sunny just interact as peers. They meet while they're decorating the dining room. They're talking about hair and shoes and complaining about their lives. Candy realizes that Sunny is just a nice, normal human being, not some perfect rival she has to compete with.
And as she's describing her stepsister to the girl who is literally sitting right next to her, Candy has this sudden moment of realization. She just breaks down crying and says, "I really goofed, didn't I?"
It's this incredibly compassionate resolution that balances out all the dark stuff from the main plot, the murders, Norman's secret. Candy is reunited with her parents, and she finally sees that her new stepsister is just a normal girl who worries about her hair.
And finally, we have to go back to the treats. The confectionery life of the town continues, reinforcing that cozy genre structure. Hannah finds a recipe for something called Ibby's Metaphysical English Toffee.
A recipe she got from an old teaching assistant in college who used to give out the toffee as a reward for getting high scores on quizzes about 17th century English poets.
That detail is just wonderful, isn't it? It connects the academic world Hannah left behind, the cozy domestic world she lives in now, and the simple joy of food, all in one treat. The bakery plans to sell it for the holidays.
It grounds the whole narrative one last time. Peace is restored, the killer is caught, and the most pressing concern is whether they can make enough toffee to meet the holiday demand.
So what does this all mean for you as the learner, looking at this genre? The cozy mystery and chocolate chip cookie murder is a perfect example. It works because it builds a world that is so detailed and seems so safe that when crime is introduced, it feels genuinely shocking.
The genre absolutely depends on that structural tension. The killer had to be a pillar of the community, not some random outsider. The victim had to be someone everyone knew. And the secrets, the gambling, Norman's horrifying hobby, the financial ruin, they're all contained within that facade of the quaint small town.
And the amateur sleuth works here because Hannah can get into social layers that the police can't. She can use cookies and local gossip. She can leverage her family ties and her connections at the makeup counter. She can engage with suspects in ways a professional detective like Mike Kingston would find totally inappropriate.
Right. The genre requires the small world to police itself, using social norms and personal connections as its primary investigative tools.
And here's where it gets really interesting if you think about the setting. At one point, Hannah reflects that the one crime Lake Eden doesn't really have is breaking and entering in the winter. Why? Because, as she puts it, it's too cold for crime.
But the killer, Judith Woodley, was one of the town's most respected figures. And she wasn't driven by simple profit. She was driven by social status and desperation.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to consider. If the physical setting, the brutal cold of a Minnesota winter, provides protection from petty crime, does that same frozen landscape and the tight social insulation it creates actually foster the perfect environment for intense, high-stakes personal crime?
Does the pressure to keep up appearances in a small, closed-off community like that inevitably lead to desperation and even violence among the very people who are supposed to be upholding its values?
Something to chew on.
Thank you for joining us for the deep dive. We'll see you next time.